Well, hello everybody. This is the first ride of the Kent Eagle Ridge gravel bike. Apologize for any background noise. My neighbor's over there edging and that thing's loud, but we'll get moving here in just a second. So just gonna do a little quick walk around. Hopefully this is in frame well enough, but anyway, so all I've done to this thing, I aired the tires up, I adjusted the seat post is actually really long on this thing, which is impressive. Adjusted the saddle nose down. I dropped the stem to where it's just showing the little maximum height lines on the stem. And then I did loosen the front brake cable a little bit so I could fix this. So this has got one of those little releases in there so you can release the lever, it moves out further. Again, that's for rim brakes, doesn't really apply to disc brakes. And they had it adjusted to where the cable was tight in this position. I just couldn't get my hand around the brake lever, and I felt it was not safe for me to ride, especially an unknown bike with questionable brakes without being able to get a good handle on the brakes. So they still rub quite a bit. So this is kind of what I think indicative of a bike that is sold at Walmart. And then that front wheel, hopefully that picks up there and maybe we can see it. So anyway, almost forgot to put my helmet on here. Don't have my gloves, anything like that. So there. So I'm doing this the way I think most any cyclists would. I've got a specialized helmet. It's not so fancy, but that's what I got. And then these are, they are cycling gloves, but they're the old school crochet back, really padded, real similar to weightlifting gloves. So I think that's kind of fitting for this bike. I got my GoPro strapped to my chest here. Got no water bottle cages on this frame yet, but I do have a Camelback for hydration. And we're just going to take a quick little ride here. So right off the bat I can hear the front brake squealing, and let me adjust that up a little bit. Anyway, so this is gonna be my first decently long ride, and boy, those brakes do pulsate a lot. The rear one especially has a lot of pulsation in it. So I'm not wearing any sort of specialized cycling equipment other than my helmet and technically these gloves, but I've got regular just athletic shorts on and tennis shoes, because that's how I think most people are going to ride a bike like this. The shifting, and it's got these twist shifters. The front one is what they call a friction shifter. It's got various different clicks here, but it doesn't have just the 3 position. I'm on the big ring now. Boy, that is just the rear brake, and it is just pulsating like crazy. I don't know if that rotor is just really warped or if there's something on it that's not giving consistent grip. But anyway, it's not so great. Boy, in that front wheel, I'm going to stand over there and hopefully you can see how horribly warped that front wheel is. Hopefully I can get that thing straightened out pretty good. And see what happens here. So I'm in the big ring in the front and 7 speeds out back. I'm on the 3rd from the smallest cog, but it's reading 4 because the shifting on this thing is not right. The cable is way loose on that rear derailleur, and it just, see right there, there's nothing there. So obviously I got to tighten up the cable to get any sort of reasonable adjustment on here. The limit screws on the front derailleur actually seem to be set up fairly close. I haven't been able to get the chain to come off the bottom or the top, so that's nice. The that a little bit more and see, but that'll just be all part of the setup stuff that I do. But so far, I know that the bottom bracket's a little bit loose. I don't feel it too much. It's not horrendously loose, but I do know that it's got a little bit of slop in it. Front wheel, oh god, the bearings don't seem to be too loose. I bet you if anything they're too tight. So have to see how much grease is in the wheel bearings and bottom bracket and headset, and that'll be kind of the next thing I do, is go over what's going on with the bike. So take a right down this street here. A little bump there. Not too bad. What I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna take a little circle through this dirt and grass area right off the trail, just to get an idea. I'm in way too tall of a gear. I didn't downshift. That's the disadvantage to these grip shifters up on the top section of the handlebars. I'm so used to integrated shifters like on my other road bike, although it's really not that much different than old bikes that didn't have integrated shifters. They either had the shifters down here in the frame or up on the stem. And that's kind of what these are more so patterned after, I think. But you know, a lot of entry-level bicycles these days come with twist shifters. They're inexpensive to make, and people tend to my chain's crossed up a little bit. Let me drop to the middle. So this is oh yeah, that's not the most stable through that looser terrain. One thing I noticed on this bike, I did jump on it and go pedal around up and down my street last night, was the toe overlap front wheel when you turn it sharp. It does hit my toe, which part of that is because this frame's a little bit small for me. When I measured it out, the seat tube center bottom bracket to the top of the seat post was 54 centimeters. It's got a semi-compact geometry, so it's not terribly small. The top tube was like 57 centimeters, something like that, and so not too far off. 58 centimeter frame is what I ride on my Specialized, and it's got a little bit longer top tube, and that's kind of the newer style geometry on a lot of bikes. So yeah, this is sort of what I am interested to see, is how riding a bike like this around neighborhoods, and this is sort of the type of riding I would anticipate this bike and bikes like this that you'd buy from Walmart are going to do. Well, the gearing on this thing is way too low, even in the big ring, because it's got a mountain bike style crank set. It's a triple again, but it's probably a 42 or 44 tooth big ring, and even on my gravel bike, my Specialized, it's a 48, and of course the freewheel on this thing doesn't go down to as small of a tall gear as what bikes with a cassette hub do. That bike has an 1134, I think, and this one's like a 1428. So that 14 tooth just doesn't give you as much low end. The other thing I noticed on this bike, the front end feels real floppy. Like the geometry feels like it might be a little bit off. It also feels like it pulls to the left a little bit. Like it doesn't want to go straight, which, I mean, who knows if these wheels are in the frame straight. I mean, they are vertical dropouts, but this frame probably is not the most precision in terms of frame alignment and construction, so I would expect that would be possibly an issue. Get out and go ride before it gets too hot. It's, oh geez, I think it's supposed to be 102, 103 today, and even in the morning it's humid. It's over 80 degrees already. I didn't look at my thermometer before I left the house, but it pretty much starts right around 80 degrees this time of year. I mean, all in all, I feel that front tire wobbling around a bit. It's not as obvious as I thought it might be. I guess the radial trueness is close enough where I'm not really feeling a hop in it. I feel it a little bit going around corners. But I'm definitely working a bit harder to maintain speed. I know the brake's dragging, that's part of it. It's heavier. I'm sure these tires are relatively slick down the center, so they ought to ride. God, I'm a little bit out of breath. Anyway, they ought to roll pretty decent. I got them inflated to about 50 psi. Which might be a little bit low for just riding around on the street, but I've seen some of these cheaper tires not take high pressures very well, try to blow off the rim and unseat the beads, so I'll keep an eye on it and see if I can run a little bit higher pressures. Pedals, riding in tennis shoes aren't the most comfortable thing. They're not a super large platform, and again, I'm just wearing regular tennis shoes, so the soles are very soft. I think in the future I'm gonna either wear my cycling shoes. I've got a few different pairs of flat pedal cycling shoes, like my mountain bike shoes. The soles are a little bit grippier and stiffer, so it transfers power better, and you don't get those hot spots under your feet from the pedal. Brake lever's loose. Again, this is just how more or less the bike was when I picked it up. So I did check, make sure the wheels were bolted on, because I'm all about testing things out and trying to have realistic conditions, but I'm not about falling off my bike and getting hurt. So I did check that, and again, I adjusted the brake cable on the front brake just so I could close this brake lever in proper position and get to it and reach it safely. This is kind of one of my little ride loops. hoods. You know, so far, there's obviously some things I'm not super enthused about on this bike. These handlebars are terrible. They're not a modern ergonomic shape. Actually, that was the other thing I adjusted on this bike. I did tilt them up just a little bit to get the hoods of the brake levers up and back just a little bit so I could ride on them. Brakes howling, just barely on them, but that was the front brake making all that noise. There, I feel the bottom bracket clunking a little bit, but yeah, these bars are not so comfortable. The seat honestly isn't too bad, especially since I'm not wearing any sort of padded shorts like I normally do. Well, I'm doing everything I can not to shift gears on this thing, just because to me it's kind of a pain to have to readjust. Just leave it in the big ring anyway. That's what I do on my other bike. So I think getting this thing tuned up, straightening out the wheels, straightening out the rotors, making sure the braking's more consistent. I'm sure those pads need to be bedded in a little bit more anyway. It probably won't be too bad. It's heavy, that's for sure, but I think just making sure everything is running as free and smooth and efficient as possible will make a big difference in how this bike rides. I would like to throw a set of my clipless pedals on it. I'll have a set of pedals. They're almost as expensive as the bike, but you know, that would be a little better for me, because I do ride clipless pedals on the street, not on my comfort bike. That's just kind of a casual get on it and go bike, but my gravel bike, for sure, I'm riding clipless on that thing. Get over here on this path, got a little trail to go explore. I'll just loop around here just so y'all can see. They built a nice little pond. And this isn't the neighborhood I live in, but it's close. And they have a nice loop around the entire neighborhood. Oh, there's some ducks down in there. Anyway, yeah, I think it'll be a reasonably okay bike to ride, and I think from an amateur perspective it's probably fine, but one thing that will be hard for me to truly test will be long-term durability. Hit some dirt here and see. Ooh. These bars, I measured them, they're almost 44 centimeters wide. Probably not as terrible as I thought it would be. It's what I expected it to be as far as mechanical condition right out of the box. But ooh, the cranks feel so funny to me because they're shorter. These are 170s, which isn't too short. I got 175s on all my bikes. Not sure about the Specialized roll, a comfort bike. It might have 170s. I'll have to check it, but I know my mountain bike's got 175s. I know my road bike does. So these feel funny. But if I did decide to upgrade any of the drivetrain on this, I probably would stick with 170mm crank arms because of the toe overlap. I don't want to make it any worse. Alright, back through here. I'd love to go off down there, but there's people down there, plus I don't trust the brakes. Alright, back through the tunnel. This thing's full of dirt. It gets so muddy whenever it rains because they didn't design all this stuff properly, and the drainage is terrible. Back on the other side, it'll be standing water for weeks and weeks. And during the spring, winter months when it's a little rainier, basically just standing water all the time. So a lot of times I don't even go through there because there will be inches of that silty sand that's turned into mud, and it's freaking terrible. Oh, rabbit. Never understand why critters, instead of running the opposite direction, they want to run in front of you. You know, the shifting, even though the cable is loose, it's loose to the degree of about 1 cog. So it's actually, once you take up that slack in the cable, which does prevent you from shifting into the very lowest gear on the rear freewheel, but of the 6 gears it'll shift through, it shifts pretty good. I mean, obviously I'm not hammering this thing under a lot of power and putting load on it, but just as far as basic adjustment, it could be, you know, half a cog off, a quarter of a cog off, and sit there and chatter, but it's pretty quiet. So I don't need the largest cog in the back. With the size of the chain rings up here, it does start to cross chain just a little bit on the next to the biggest cog, but shift down and it quietens down. I'm actually getting a decent workout. I guess that's something to be said about a heavy bike. Anyway, still recording, good. I don't know how long this will go on a battery. All right, and we're back. So, popping the battery in this thing, it died quick. I don't know how long these batteries are supposed to last, but that one didn't last very long. So, had a freshly charged battery back at the house, popped it in, and now we're rolling. So, last little bit of this ride, I just want to go right around the little gravel walking path that's in the neighborhood park. So I think when the battery died, I was talking about the handlebars and the ergonomics, and I think some more cushy, thickly padded handlebar tape would work wonders. There's not a whole lot of padding there, and the overlap is pretty wide, so it's definitely not super thick. And if I rewrap the handlebars on this, I may scoot the brake levers back up just a little bit just to smooth out the transition. And that'll probably help a little bit. This is smooth right here. The back side over on the other side, a few little dips there, but the back side's a little rougher. damp. Sprinklers must have been going this morning. And these tires are pretty big. They're 700 by 40C, so they seem to soak up a lot of the chatter. I'm gonna ride over here on these rocks a little bit. That's a little sketchy, but not too bad. You know what? Let me go to the middle ring. There we go. Alright. Take another lap. And I don't think I would want to go off down into a lot of rough stuff, but you know, we'll skip there. Not too bad. Works okay. So, first ride, not great. A lot of issues, but a lot better than I thought it would be. So, catch my breath, sorry. Yeah, need to do a complete tune-up on this bike. Make sure it's got grease and everything. And keep riding it and see how it is. So thanks for coming along, going for a morning ride with me. And be sure to subscribe, like. I don't have enough subscribers right now to even have monetization available. But hey, if it ever happened and I made a few bucks, I won't complain. So go ahead and subscribe. Thank you very much, and see you next time.